Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We are live with Real Talk with Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace Media. I am Mary Grace, and we are live today on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and Clout Hub. And we're trying a little bit of a new setup, so hopefully it's going to work. I hope everybody can hear me. And if you can, please just let me know in the chat. And as you're coming in, please share this. Please copy the link, share it out, invite followers. If you're on Facebook, Facebook is sort of on to us right now, and they're suppressing the feed. So if you are on Facebook, please make sure that you have that you're sharing it into groups. Okay, so please make sure that you're sharing it into groups, and just make sure that you get it out as far and wide as you can. We do have a guest coming on the show today, so please just get this out as far as you can. We're going to be having our guest coming in about 10 minutes, and so we want to get as many people as possible watching this show. This is a very important episode. If you're new here, if you're just watching me for the first time, welcome. Please go ahead and retweet this, share it into groups, and hit the likes and the hearts, and depending on whatever platform you're on. So on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribing to the channel, and on Periscope, make sure that you hit the subscribe and turn on the notifications, Twitter, all of that. All right. So I think that we've got chat going here. All right. We've got Sweden for Trump in. That's great. All right. Now, uh, we are going to talk about Mike Pence. So that's a good thing. It's important to do that. And we're going to get started here. So I just saw on Twitter that the Georgia Senate has recommended to decertify the election in Georgia. And so I have not been following closely on that hearing today. I do know that they had a hearing. I know that there are a lot of things being juggled in different states right now with regard to their different with the electors and the legislatures and all of that. And you might have noticed with the election that at this time there are many angles that are being played. And so you've got the courts angle, you've got the legislature angle, you've got what we're calling the Pence card, which is a very good potential angle to be played here. And these are all really viable. And so I didn't watch the Georgia hearing, but again, part of what is happening right now is the education phase, right? We're in that point where we're educating the public. And I don't know about you, but there is a lot of education going on. I think Americans are getting a pretty solid education in electoral processes and in constitutional law. There's a lot that I know now that I didn't know a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And so, we're all learning together. We're here to save the republic. And so we're just going to keep at it, and we're going to get as much information as we can. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep making phone calls. We're going to show up in Washington, D.C., all of that. Okay. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going to be happening. You may hear some background noise while I'm talking today because Barley is being a little bit crazy. I think we have a weather front coming in. Barley's the cat. He's the show cat. So he is a little crazy, and I thought that he was locked upstairs, but he got let out. So he's in this area now. Okay. So if you hear little noises, that's what's going on. Barley the cat is in the area. Okay. That's just our disclaimer. And so we're going to have a constitutional law scholar, and we're going to have Barley the cat in the background. How about that? And so let me just see who we've got here. Hmm, may have a troll. Yeah, how about that? Okay, there we go. All right, show barley. I'll show barley later. I'm going to call in just a minute. Okay, so we've got Ivan Raiklan coming on the call, and Ivan has been all over Twitter today. I don't know how many of you have been on Twitter, but if you have been on Twitter, if you have been on Twitter, you've seen that the hashtag Pence card has been trending, and it may be trending on Facebook. It may be trending in some other places, but this is important because starting the last day or two, Ivan Raiklan has been tweeting and talking and doing as much uh, communication about this specific strategy as he can. And this is a strategy that couldn't have even been played until after the 14th, after the states sent their electors to Congress. And so this is a pretty big deal, what is going on right now. And so I invited him to call in. I'm going to call him and have him talk to you and give people information about what's happening. So it's I know he's been on several other shows. He was on X22 Report, and he's trying to get the word out because, as we all know, social media is censoring all of the conservatives, and so it's it's we're going to try to get the word out as as much as we can. And it looks like I'm being censored here. Has anyone seen Dave, Praying Medic? Has he been in? Because I don't even know if he got my notification. We're trying to get this retweeted to as many people as possible. Let me just message him really quickly. Um, yeah. Okay. So now Barley's eating the carpet. Oh my goodness. It's just one of those days, right? And so we're just making it all work. Um, this is like all the people that are working from home and doing teleconferencing, right? There's always something going on in the background. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to call Ivan in just a second, and hopefully we'll get this retweeted out. So yeah, so if everybody can just share this, let people know, send it out in emails. He's going to educate us a little bit. And if you don't know Ivan, his Twitter is Raiklin at Raiklin, and I might have to get rid of the cat before I call him. So because he's needing my attention. Okay, let's see if we can not have him bother me. Okay, I think we're going to be all right. One of those days. Okay. Uh yeah, Twitter is really let's see. Do I have a troll in here? Iowa. Is Iowa a troll? Well, let me see. Boy, my chat is absolutely not going at all. Okay. Let me see. Thank you, Catherine. All right. There's a troll somewhere. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and make the call, and we'll do the best we can with Barley here. All right. So let me switch over. We've got. I'm doing some fancy graphics. Okay, so I've got Ivan's picture up here in the corner, and I'm going to put his information up here, right here. So here we go. And I'm going to call him, and hopefully it's going to work the way we want it to. We're just doing an old-fashioned phone call. So he's going to do a little interview here. Okay, interesting. Not working. All right, let me just see if I can get through to him. Huh. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. Third time's the charm. Thank you for your patience. I might have to message him. We've got really high tech here. All right. We may try him in a few minutes. I just messaged him. Okay, we'll try him in a minute. He might be on another interview or something. Okay, so I'm going to skip. I'm going to fast forward for just a minute. Yeah, so someone just asked about the president of the Senate. Yeah, Mike Pence is the president of the Senate. So he is, and Ivan's going to explain that. So I just messaged him, and we'll get back to him in just a minute. And so it's like the war room, right? When Bannon tries to get people on and they're not quite ready. So we'll come back to him and let's see. Okay, we'll switch off here. And okay. All right. So coming back to this now, I wanted to tell you a little bit how many people in my audience are going to DC to be there on the 6th of January, according to the president's calling. I want to see in the chat who is going to be in Washington DC, like on the 5th and 6th of January. Um, do we have people going? Okay. So this is important. I wanted to talk about this because I was actually just we just got notice from the Trump Hotel, and something kind of interesting has happened, and that is that the mayor of Washington D.C. has decided all of a sudden that D.C. is a danger zone, and so they've locked down the city so that there's no more indoor dining. Is that surprising to you or not? It shouldn't be surprising because this is what they do. The president called for a protest in DC, and the next thing you know, the mayor of Washington, DC shuts down indoor dining. And that is going to have an impact. And I wanted to let everybody know about that because one of the things that's happening in the hotel, even in the Trump Hotel, is that they're not even going to be having you can't even sit in the common areas and eat. So that's something to be prepared for when you go to DC and you're planning to eat. So either bring a lunch, bring a snack, be prepared to get food, from to go food, but just know that you might not even be able to sit in your hotel lobby. And this is obviously this is TDS syndrome gone to unbelievable lengths, right? And it's not surprising to any of us, but just be aware that that is going on. And this prohibition on indoor dining is going all the way until the 15th of January. So it's pretty obvious what they're doing. Now, there are some convenience stores around Pennsylvania Avenue. I think, there are some places that are open, but that are boarded up. So just be aware of that. And so, for example, in the hotel, they're not allowing more than two people in a room. So technically, you can't even have a party in your room or whatever, unless you have a four-person room or something like that. So they're just, yeah, it's so obvious, and so they're trying to demoralize you. They're trying to keep people from coming. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to try to lock down the city or something like that. Uh, the hotels that have room service, I think they're still going to be doing that, but I just wanted people to be aware of that so that as you come into the city, you're prepared. Now, I do believe that people are going to be offering food to go, and I believe that they're going to have food trucks. You just need to know that you may not have a place to go inside to eat. And so, depending on where you're parked, depending on if you're in a garage, if you're walking a long way, just don't count on being able to go inside of a restaurant to eat, unfortunately. I think that they are going to allow the outdoor dining, which is in the dead of winter. And so they'll have those outdoor indoor dining things. But then, knowing these Democrats, all the restaurants will put the money into it, and then the mayor will say, "Oh, never mind, you can't do outdoor dining," right? And so that's just something to be aware of, because you know, you just have to be aware that that's happening. And so just don't be surprised, don't be caught off guard, don't get there planning to go have a sit down meal at your favorite restaurant in DC, because that's probably not going to happen. Okay. And um and so so just be aware of that. Let me try to call Ivan again. I want to see if I can text him. Okay. Let's see if I can text him. Yeah, it's a huge revenue loss for DC. I mean, it's really bad. And so, it's obvious to me that the reason that they're doing this, I mean, it's they've gotten to the point where it's just too obvious, right? And so we're just going to do what we're going to do. It would be really great to be able to go sit down and have a nice meal inside of a restaurant after a day outside protesting and being in the cold, and they're just trying to make that impossible, right? I have a troll. Okay, I don't see them. Hold on a second. Okay, let me see. Sack lunches. I'm not sure I'm seeing the troll. Okay. Who's the troll? Can somebody tell me? All right. Okay. Who is the troll? I need to see who the troll is. Army Mom. I don't know if I see Army Mom in here. Okay, but I have a moderator. Millie, if you can see the chat, it would be great if you could deal with that. Thank you. Okay. So, the other thing about Washington, D.C. is that, because one of the things to be aware of, and I think you are aware of this, unfortunately for the restaurants, is that when you're outside in DC, when you're in DC, they're going to maybe have these outdoor seating situations, but that is one of the things that Antifa will be trying to take advantage of, right? Because you're sitting outside, and you're sitting outside, and you're kind of a sitting duck. So just be aware that if you decide to do that, if you opt for sitting at one of those outdoor tent things, just be aware that that might happen. Okay, so somebody's saying that Army Mom is just not happy with Trump. I'm not sure that's exactly a troll. Okay, all right. Ivan said he's ready, so we're gonna get him going now. Yay! Okay, so we're gonna get Ivan Rakelin in now. He's gonna be talking about the Pence card, and we're gonna see. We are going to see just if he takes the call. Okay, awesome. Okay.
Hello, this is Ivan.
Ivan, it's Mary Grace. Can you
Hey.
hear me? I've got you on
Hi.
speaker here. Thank you for taking the call.
Okay. No
Uh,
problem.
Okay, so we're here on my live stream, Real Talk with Mary Grace, and I've got several hundred people in the chat here, and they are ready and waiting to hear what you are doing up there. I'm assuming you're in DC right now.
Yeah, I'm just outside of DC in Northern Virginia, Alexandria.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, so Ivan, just I don't know how much time you have, but I know that you're really busy. You're trying to get the word out here. So we're going to give you a platform here to let you speak to our audience and give them a call to action and tell them how best to support what you're doing here with the hashtag Pence Card Initiative. And if you could tell us a little bit just quickly about, what's your background? How did you get involved? And what brought you to this moment to be pushing so hard for this specific action to be taken right now with regard to the election? Go ahead.
So just a little bit about my background. Again, Ivan Raiklen. You can take a look at Raiklen on Twitter, kind of what I'm working on. But I spent 23 years on active duty, National Guard, reserves, as a Special Forces officer, intel guy, and also as a military diplomat for a brief moment there. And then I'm also an attorney, so I focus on constitutional law and national security and that space in particular. And so I felt as though the media was not really providing the proper education to the public about the constitutional process of selecting a president. So I'm pretty passionate about the Constitution. And so when no one was really reporting on it, and that's both left and right, I felt as though every election for president should be a civics lesson for the next generation to understand the process. And it's not even close how they conduct their analysis. It's pitiful. I mean, it's disgusting. So as a member of the Veterans for Trump Advisory Board, and then working on that front, I went up to Pennsylvania because once the election happened on November 3rd, I felt like my legal skills were more relevant to supporting the campaign. So I went up there to take a look, see what was going on, see where I could help. And I felt as though folks were doing the right thing, but no one was giving that overview to the public of what's going on nationally. The messaging was off because a lot of people probably didn't really know what to do if you weren't a lawyer, and it is so difficult to understand. You really need a lawyer that understands the Constitution very well to parse through everything. So I took it upon myself in my personal capacity to match my skills of 17 years in the National Guard representing a state and understanding the dynamics of federalism, both constitutionally and as an officer of the state as well as the federal government in my previous career, coupled with being a lawyer. I put that all together and thought, you know what? I could provide some value to the conversation. And apparently, a few other people feel that same way because my Twitter's been going crazy.
Right, I know, and you're trending number one. At least you were earlier, so that's great. And so, if you could just give us, and by the way, thank you for your service. Thank you for serving our country, and thank you for stepping up to serve the campaign in the way that you have. That's great. We really appreciate that. And my audience is pro-military, pro-veteran, so we appreciate that.
Excellent.
And so if you could just give us a quick rundown of the Pence card and just tell us, from a constitutional standpoint, I guess from what you've said, the media doesn't actually choose the president after all. And so it looks like it's up to the people and that the vice president has a vital role to play here. And that's what I think a lot of people have the basis of that. But if you could just take a little bit of a dive into what's going on with the hashtag Pence card, that would be great.
Yeah, so I got it. So my motivation behind this is the Constitution, right? I want to make sure that everybody understands it, and then we go through the process of actually following through on it. And when you have the manipulation that's going on in the public discourse, it kind of taints it. So that was my motivation behind it. And then as far as the Pence card today, so there's really two things that viewers, if you haven't really done a deep dive yet, take a look at a couple components of the Constitution. There are only a few sentences that you got to really look at and study. and then one statute that's a few pages long to get fully steeped and understand what's going on. So Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 specifically states that the state legislatures are the ones that decide who their electors are going to be. So the people, when they vote on November 3rd, we are only advising the state legislature on how they should decide to vote for us. That's really it. And then the state legislature, who we also voted for directly, then decide on behalf of the state who they're going to submit based on census allocation, right, to the president. Now, the way they do that is they go through a process from November 3rd through December 14th when they complete the certification. That period of time from the 3rd through the 14th of December is when any sort of recounts, anomalies, they can address it within the state, and then they have to submit it to the federal government in the form of the president of the Senate and the national archivist. So those two components. So they did on the 14th, and on the 14th, if they did that in a manner that violated the U.S. Constitution, then my argument is that they consummated a violation of the Constitution, and the vice president, who's the recipient, has the sole authority to determine whether or not he is able to accept constitutionally insufficient slates of electors from the state.
So
he is the authority.
So
now, if somebody has an issue with it and disagrees that he has that authority, they can, by all means, go on the defense and go into court and explain why they think the vice president is not making the right assessment. Now, if he thinks that he did not receive a legally viable slate of electors and refuses to receive them, that occurs in his statutory ability to do that. It's not in the Constitution. It's listed in Title III of the U.S. Code, specifically Section 12, that lists that the fourth Wednesday of December, that's the language that they use, on the fourth Wednesday in December, the vice president, if he does not receive a slate of electors from these states, he is supposed to send a letter with a messenger requesting the Secretary of State of a state or multiple states to go ahead and demand that they provide their decision on the electors.
Okay, so that's where we are now.
That's today.
And
today is the fourth Wednesday of the
right.
month.
And you're talking. So the power that you're describing, we've heard this term plenary power sort of battered around a lot. That's what you're talking about, correct? That is absolute power. It's non-negotiable. The vice president has been granted that by the Constitution, and it's really up to him to.
No, it's not. It's not at the same level as. So the state legislatures have that plenary power.
Got it. Okay.
Because it's specifically listed under the U.S. Constitution. The language specifically states it.
Plenary power.
In the case of Vice President Pence, it's my analysis based on extrapolation of his role as the presiding officer, as well as the representative of the United States federal national government to receive these electors from the states.
Mm-hmm.
So in the absence of a Supreme Court decision to the contrary, he is that authority.
Got
it.
Okay.
He will make the decision. I have not seen any precedents of this being done, minus technically you can argue in 1960 during Nixon's time, Hawaii was the first time that Hawaii was voting. There was an issue there where the governor certified a slate, but then after the governor certified, they did a recount, and then it flipped because it was a really close election. And even though technically I was reading that the governor didn't sign off on that second slate, the vice president went at the time, or Nixon at the time was the vice president. Similar situation as Pence, kind of. He approved of the slate, the secondary slate that won the popular vote after the recount, but was not signed by the governor.
Okay.
So that's that analysis and that precedence is gonna go into an analysis of when we get to January 6th.
Okay.
But for today's purposes, it doesn't really play. Again, he asserts his authority based on his own analysis, and there's a lot of things that he can factor in his analysis to refuse the slate of electors, particularly because he has access to information that no other person, not the people, not the state legislatures, not the governor, not the U.S. Congress, no one has in this process. And what I mean specifically is, as the second highest ranking executive in our federal government, in the executive branch, he sits on the National Security Council and is getting regular briefings to incorporate in his analysis about foreign interference in U.S. critical infrastructure, to include election infrastructure that could factor in and weighing in determining whether or not that state violated the Constitution in his analysis.
Okay.
Because
can I stop you? Can I
Yep,
stop you because I have a question about that? I did see that. I saw that discussion on the fact that he's on the National Security Council. Is that there's a section in the president's executive order from September 2018 that refers to
excellent question.
Okay.
I know where you're going. Go ahead.
All right. So does this tie into that? Are we looking at information? Pence plays a role in that, correct?
He doesn't. No, actually.
Oh, okay. So
this is a phenomenal question. Let me answer it real quick.
Okay, good.
So
okay, there's a distinction, right?
In his role as vice president, because remember, when we're talking about Michael R. Pence, he has two roles and plays two hats, and they're completely separate. But it's still one person, right? One human and one brain of information that he's collected throughout his time as the vice president, and now into being the president of the Senate. So that's important distinction to know. Statutorily, they're listed who sits on the National Security Council, right? It's the president, the national security advisor, the vice president, the director of national intelligence, and then as the president deems necessary, there's other folks, but the vice president, those are the key players, right? The Secretary of Defense. Vice president is included in that, and he gets the highest level, most classified briefings on everything. Now, going back to the executive order, I think you're mentioning 13848, the one from September of 2018.
Right, and NSA is included in that, correct?
In that executive order, the assessment, the intelligence community assessment that the DNI was supposed to provide the president, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of, what was it? It was another person, but the vice president was not listed in that.
Okay, now I'm thinking of a different executive order. I'm thinking of the one that the president just signed recently, where he instituted the executive what is it
chain
called?
Of command?
Yeah, the executive chain of command.
Succession of
yeah, the executive chain. Okay, so I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad that came up. So the DNI report, the vice president actually isn't looped into that. But he
is not listed there. The DHS secretary is listed later for another assessment, but the one that was required before 45 days of an election being complete, you could. I guess one argument would be it needs to be done within 45 days of an election. And then that means it's either from November 3rd, which I argue, and if you want to really extrapolate that, you could say that election is not really complete until January 6th, and then you go 45 days from that, because you get it, right? Because it starts on November 3rd with the people's vote, and it ends in the U.S. Congress on the 6th.
Yeah, so
I argue it's the 45 days, which was last Friday, or I guess...
Well, the 45 days didn't. The report wasn't required within 45 days. The
intelligence community assessment from DNI Radcliffe was due to the president and the other people listed in that executive order. 45 days. Yes.
Okay, I was a little.
And there's another section.
Okay, I thought that was a little gray. I didn't know that the actual report was due. Okay, so but I don't want to get in the weeds on that. So let's keep going with vice president. Okay, so we're running out. We're running out of daylight, as Bannon would say. We're burning daylight. So what do we do now? We've got, the whole world is tweeting at Vice President Pence. And, I know that you have connections and you have people who have most likely been in communication with him. Can you give us a status?
I don't have any confirmation of that.
Okay.
I'm doing my best based on the platform that I have, my capability. I have my phone and my computer. That's mostly what I've been working on to try and put something together to help them and, train, mentor, because it's complicated, right? I'm just trying to get it to the right people to explain it in a credible fashion
Mm-hmm.
Basically, where we're at right now is, we have, we have until midnight.
Yeah.
Can it be done later? Yes, but then it just gives more opportunity for it to be litigated. So it's better to do
Mm-hmm.
it today because the statute specifically says today, right?
Got it. Okay. Okay. So there may be
Now,
some
there's
wiggle
also
room.
Pence
Okay.
Card 2, which you can implement, and I think that's what everybody was talking about initially before this analysis came into the national conversation a
The
few days
January
ago.
6th.
The January 6th Pence Card,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's been in the playbook for. If you look at constitutional scholars over the last probably year, they've been discussing that potentially. Just
Okay.
if you really dig deep. But the one from today really stems from two things. December 14th is when the states completed their certification process, right? And then the second component is that the SCOTUS decided not to get involved in the Texas case.
Right.
So by the SCOTUS not deciding anything about this election, that really gives the vice president that ability to do so. Because we've never been in a situation where we had 6 states
Mm-hmm.
conducting, certifying an election against the Constitution's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, as well as the 14th Amendment by allowing all the illegal votes. So dead voters, double voting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an equal protection clause violation of the people that legitimately voted, legal human beings. And so based on his analysis, not only of foreign understanding,
Mm-hmm.
but also the second component is that he has access and understanding if he wants to. He can call the attorney general and find out, hey, do we have any criminal investigations going on? And how, what is going on in all these 8 cities and the 8 contested cities / 6 states?
Mm-hmm.
He has potentially access to that again, the states don't have, the U.S. Congress don't have. So that is informing his reasoning in addition to the constitutional violations of why he cannot receive them.
Okay, so
why he shouldn't receive them.
So you're saying that in legal terms, the vice president really has I don't think the word is standing, but he has cause, because if these elections have been certified fraudulently, the crime has been committed, and he also has access
right.
to
He essentially would be. I mean, you could argue that he's participating or facilitating that fraudulent activity by accepting them.
Mm-hmm, I understand, yeah,
and he has the ability to not accept them. And then what that triggers is it forces the state legislature to decide 3 things that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 options, is what I argue. They run a new election, which is not plausible by January 6th. They sue the vice president saying that he's not correct, and then go to the district court, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court within 2 weeks, and then hoping that the Supreme Court takes it. Almost certainly that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the third option, which is the most plausible and likely option, is for the state legislature, without the governor, without the Supreme Court of that state, they have plenary power by the House Speaker of that state and the Senate President to call a legislative session on their own. No, Governor Kemp, no Governor Ducey required. They just do it and then vote for a slate of electors. And in my estimation, if the vice president asking you to make a vote and the people that supported you from beneath are demanding for you to vote for a Republican slate of electors, and it's a majority legislature Republican, and the president, if your political career is completely over with if you do not vote for a Republican slate of legislatures in that circumstance. Or they can abstain and say, you know what, we're not going to vote. We're going to take the weakling approach, and we're just not going to vote. And that means the denominator of how many electoral votes are needed on January 6th is lowered. So you no longer need 270. It'll be less. But that'll be discussed later in the coming days.
Okay, so one of the questions that I've seen that I think is a legitimate question is that if the vice president does this today, which he doesn't have to do,
correct. It's just cleaner if it's done today.
Okay,
much cleaner.
So one argument I've seen from somebody who may just be a Twitter lawyer is that if he waits until the 6th, that leaves less room for the left to attack. That doesn't give them right now. If he does it today,
I agree with that analysis.
You don't agree.
My counter to that, to factor in, is legacy speaking. If you're thinking like 100, 200 years down the road, by doing it this way today, it allows the state to be informed. In that explanation, it says, this is why I have concerns because you violated so-and-so. I want to give you, as the vice president, an opportunity to remedy your violations, and then over the next 2 weeks, they will be able to remedy the mess that they cause of sending unconstitutional slate of electors. So in terms of legacy / precedent for the future, I mean, there's an argument to be made obviously on the other side, but that's my feeling on it.
Okay, so what about the argument that we have had? We've had weeks and weeks of trying to get through to the state legislatures, and that has not been that successful because they've shown
I would
themselves.
disagree with you on that.
Okay,
it has been successful.
Okay,
are we at the point where it creates a change in the electoral slate? Today, not yet.
Okay.
If you look at 2 weeks ago and where we're at today, massive momentum. I'm talking like 3 weeks ago, it was the legislatures we're not even going to talk about it.
Okay.
Look at Pennsylvania. You have dozens and dozens of legislatures that sent a memo to the U.S. Congress saying, do not accept our slate of electors.
Okay.
You have in Arizona things going on. You have in Georgia the second hearing today. You had the Judiciary, I think, committee in Georgia on Friday submitting a 15-page report saying that we cannot accept the way the election was run, and we can't accept the electors that were sent. So,
okay,
the pressure that we've collectively been putting on these legislators is moving. It's moving fast, actually.
So you think
but it needs to move faster.
Okay, so the Pence card, so the hashtag Pence card could be the tipping point that really motivates these legislators
absolutely.
to take further action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that do you think that would also have the effect of giving them courage, because courage is contagious, obviously, yes. Right? That they would have the vice president's back to stand on. In other words, is that
right.
sort of okay?
Because they see that the vice president has spoken, and you understand conservative politics enough. Probably it sounds like that if everyone knows that the president's trying to fight. Vice president, he has just a different style to his, how he does things. But if he does this, it in one moment completely consolidates the entire Republican Party. No questions asked, full stop, complete unification. Whether it's a rhino, a weak conservative, a hardcore conservative to a Trump loyalist, every single person falls in line, lockstep, locking arms, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think, I can agree with that assessment. So here's something else I want to throw at you, because before you started tweeting about hashtag Pence card, I did a segment the other day where I used the term Pence card, and I was referring to the broadcast that Vice President Pence put up last week, where he was celebrating the birthday of Space Force. And he was in a conversation, or Chris Miller gave a speech, and he thanked Vice President for mentoring him. Are you familiar with that speech where Miller?
I didn't personally view it, but I heard it secondhand.
Okay, so
it sounds exactly what you're.
Okay, so so Miller thanked the Vice President for being his mentor, and he referenced the most complex military operation ever, really, in the history of our country. And he was referencing something oblique that we don't know about, and maybe never will, that took place between the 9th of November and last week. And so my assessment on this was that because of the changes that the president has made with the command structure of the military, I believe that whatever the president has been doing behind the scenes, which he's want to do, we have seen him often have maneuvers happening when nobody knows. We don't know until after it's finished that he did it. For example, Soleimani, he's dead. Nobody knew it was happening. He's contained the leaks. So when he consolidated the power and put the special forces directly under Miller, I got the impression that something really big happened.
You're following us closely. I love it.
Yeah. So you should watch my show. Okay. So I got the impression that and make sure you tweet this out. But I got the impression that that there is a lot happening behind the scenes, and that all of the posturing and the noise that the president has been making has been in some ways a distraction, which we've seen him do a lot. He jangles the keys over here, look over here, not over here. Okay. And so my assessment was that all this time, when everybody thought that the president was, whining and complaining and doing whatever, oh my God, I wish he'd stop tweeting. All this time, people have been waiting for the Trump card, and they've actually already played the Pence card. And we're going to find out what that was. We just don't know yet. Just like most of the highly secretive operations that have taken place under this administration, the most successful military operations were all kept secret. That's what I was calling the Pence card. So it's kind of ironic that we're now coming into another level of putting Pence into operation. It's become right.
No, I didn't know that. Thank you for kind of sharing that. But no,
Yeah.
I spent a couple decades in the defense sector,
Okay.
so I have my little take on it. I
Okay.
would say so.
Yeah.
I guess where do we start? The let's see here. I don't know what he's referring to because I'd have to see it. But in terms of during an election of a transition or a potential transition of power in the United States,
Hmm.
if I put my enemy hat on or adversarial hat, if I should say, on,
Hmm.
and I am the leader of China, Russia, and Iran, I'm probably having daily meetings and discussions on what the three of us can do collectively against the United States to gain influence, diminish the power of the United States, and then to attack and strike them in response to something that I have perceived as an aggression or something else of the United States.
Hmm.
So what that means is China, right? China has 1.4 billion people.
Hmm.
They need resources. They need global influence because that's just reality, right?
Right.
That's how things work in international relations 101 realism. On the second front is Russia, right? So Russia is looking to diminish U.S. power. And lastly, Iran is probably looking for a little bit of revenge from Soleimani and Mohandas, the two
Hmm.
terrorist leaders. So what would they do collectively is you want to do some cyber operations,
Right.
which probably he's referring. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
So some sort of cyber activity and attacking on critical infrastructure, as well as all. I think later on it's going to come out that we're going to see a lot of financing from foreign entities
Hmm.
through cutouts, of course, funding the riots that occurred all summer long.
Oh, I've talked about that on the
Right?
show, so I 100% agree with you. I was talking about that. In the middle of the riots, I was one of the only ones who was calling out the CCP and saying
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, this is
It's a low cost method
yeah.
to create chaos
Hmm.
and create diversion internally to the U.S. Right to
Okay.
be able to weaken it.
Yeah,
Now,
the color
the Department
revolution.
of Defense.
Right.
Let me move it back around to the Department of Defense.
Okay.
Knowing all this activity going on externally, constitutionally speaking, the national government is really created to provide security and safety for
Mhm.
the entire population, via the Department of Defense. So the number one priority is to make sure that we're safe, especially
Right.
at a time of transition. So that's what he's probably referring to activities that have been going on
Mhm.
in the run up and then immediately after the election, because those countries are going to try and exploit it. Why
Right,
wouldn't
and
they?
yeah, and I do. I mean, obviously, we are mounting. I mean, we have assets deployed all over, right? I do know
Right,
that.
and with that said, you have to position all the
Mhm.
different assets you have based on the
Mhm.
current intelligence you have to be able to prepare and
Yeah.
defend.
I,
Like Russia probes with their
yeah.
aircraft.
Yeah.
I'm sure China. I
Uh-huh.
don't know. Their navy is getting more capable, and
Mhm.
so
Mhm. I think
yeah.
that yeah, I think that it would be interesting. I mean, I'd be interested to hear your take when you go back and listen to that because he really he referred specifically to the most complex operation ever. I mean, it was not hyperbole. He was very emotional. So it sounds to me like they actually executed an op. I don't know. I just you're a Green Beret, so you have a better idea of what happens in those situations. But that was my take on it. I don't know. I have pretty good instincts when I hear
Mhm.
things like that, and I read between the lines on things, and so that was my take. But going back to the hashtag Pence card that you're talking about,
Mhm.
They may
So
be
I guess
really.
there's three different Pence cards. There's the one that you were referring
Yeah,
to from
yeah,
Space Force 1 year
hmm,
anniversary.
yeah,
There's the other one that I was kind of ancillary seeing. I
hmm,
think they're referring to the January 6th
yeah,
Pence card,
yeah,
where he presides over the Senate, and
hmm,
he has a lot of leeway on what he does, right?
right,
Because
right.
he's the presiding officer and how he's going to administer things. And then the one that we kind of focused on today. So Pence card 1, Pence card 2, Pence card 3. We're talking
Okay,
about Pence card 2, which is today.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it would be. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. Pence card 1 is intertwined with Pence cards 2 and 3. That's what I'm picking up on this, because at some point, whether it's today or January 6th, I do believe that he's going to play a pivotal role in this. So,
I just think that I say play them all.
okay,
Why leave anything on the table? You
got it,
play it
got it.
today, you may
Okay,
still have to play it again. Because from today, when he uses it, and if it's denied, and even if somebody prevails in court and says that no, that's not correct,
hmm,
2 weeks down the road, there's going to be much more evidence, more people coming out. There's
hmm,
going to be people trying to do plea agreements, criminal investigations, indictments. I mean, we're already seeing that.
right,
Legislature changes.
right,
So from
right.
today until 2 weeks from now, a whole body of evidence is going to come out. Just like from today
Hmm.
to 2 weeks ago, a whole body of evidence was established to show different types of fraud. Specifically, the biggest one is the compilation that Peter Navarro put together and his team with the Immaculate Deception. You saw that?
Yes, yeah, what was it, 36-page
Yes, 30
report?
some pages. It
Yeah,
was kind of a roll up. And
yeah,
literally, I had been working on documentation similar to that with one sliders that I was doing
okay.
to give assessments of
Yeah,
over the
yeah, I've been
months.
following those. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Peter Navarro, amazing uh, body of content that really puts it into perspective of what's going on. And in each one of these states, the fraudulent ballots in the collective are far outweigh by 3x, 5x, 10x in some cases the differential between the fraudulent total
Mhm.
lead by Pence and then
Yeah.
the legitimate tally for President Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
a piece of content that is, if you haven't seen it yet, I would take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are several angles at play here, and I want to ask you too. You're based in Northern Virginia. I've seen you in DC before, and uh, one of the impressions that I have is that there is a team that is working pretty closely with the president uh, in an unofficial capacity, and that's General Flynn and Sidney Powell. I think it would be. I think anybody who's paying attention can see that they're working
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
a little more closely with him than people want to admit. And I just wondered if if you could shed light on the what you're picking up, maybe if there's anything that you can tell my listeners based on the fact that you're probably getting around more than I am in those circles. Is there anything you can tell
I mean,
us?
I'm picking a lot of the same signals and messaging that you are
Okay.
through social chatter and Twitter. I mean, Twitter's pretty ahead of it compared to
Yeah.
other places. But
Yeah.
I would say this. My take on it, based on what I know, is you have people in the White House that have been in there for from a year to several years.
Hmm.
They've been sprinting. They've been trying to do great work for our country and for the president. And just like in a basketball game, when you're in the middle of the fourth quarter, and you've
Hmm.
been sprinting up and down the court for the entire game, you're going to get tired at some point, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is probably more the dynamic that's going on because each person has a different threshold of acceptance of risk, as well as at what point are you tired, right?
Got it.
I think
Okay.
that's probably more of what's going on than what the negativity out there is talking about, right? Because if I'm a foreign adversary, I want to create division. If I am the other party, I want to create division. If I am
Hmm.
the communications team for the other party, i.e., mainstream media and big tech, I
Hmm.
want to create divisions.
Hmm.
And then anybody that says an inkling maybe an unappropriate term that can be extrapolated into making it into a real fight, they're going to exploit it.
Right.
So I think that's one component. And then you have people that are on the bench that are hungry to get in the game and want to get in there and start fighting as hard as you can, because they're fresh and they want to get in there.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's
and
literally what's going on.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed too, I don't know if you've been hearing the chatter coming out saying that, that there are people in Trump's inner circle who are opposing him, who are leaking, who are really not serving his best interest, and that in fact he's actually.
I think that.
Yeah.
My assessment again.
Yeah.
I give the benefit of the doubt to the people that everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is one member of the team as capable as Michael Jordan, right? For example.
Right. Well,
you're always going to have a Michael Jordan. You're going to have a Scottie Pippen. I'm using basketball analogy, but whatever sport you want. Are we always going to have a Pele? All 11 teammates. No.
Right. No, I understand. Well,
we're going to use everybody, all hands on deck, and the more people that can support, the more fans in the stadium, the more motivation there is for the people on the field and on the team to work harder.
Right. And one of the things that I've noticed that the president does too is that he actually is okay with a certain amount of disinformation, especially when it comes to, allowing the impression that there's more chaos in the White House than there actually is. We've seen him do that over and over. And I think that this is one of those situations maybe where it's some of the reports that are coming out saying that, he doesn't have control of, who's contacting him, and he's insulated, and people are, preventing him, things like that. I think some of that is misinformation.
Everybody has personal and professional motivations that are going to taint what they're putting out to kind of shape the conversation.
Yeah, no, so, I agree.
I will tell you this.
Yeah.
There's a book called Masters of Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the Green Berets. And it's basically thriving in a chaotic environment. So I'm reveling right now. If you think it's chaos right now, it's not even close.
Right, and I think Trump thrives in that too.
If we don't defend the Constitution with the 6 or 7 mechanisms that are in place right now, because the courts are not getting involved in the 10 cases that are before it.
Right.
If we don't hold hearings before the Congress to continue to look into and investigate before January 6th, if we don't do that, if the state legislatures don't continue to investigate and correct what they just did on December 14th by January 6th, if all those plays don't happen, if the people don't get informed and push the state and their federal elected officials into doing that, if we're exhausting all of that and there's still mounting an increasing percentage of the population that doesn't trust the outcome of the election, as well as the public officials that are administering it, then we move into what has been floated around as the Insurrection Act option.
Right.
And then even further.
And that would be like martial law, that type of thing. Yeah.
But that only happens when there is complete lawlessness on the streets. We're not there yet.
Right. I get that.
That is a constitutional and legal option that the president has. We're not even close.
Yeah. One thing too that I wanted to add, that people are asking. Shoot, I've lost my train of thought on that question. There was another question that somebody had about what the president could do, or we'll come back to that. So so in terms of the Insurrection Act, a lot of people have been floating that around. A lot of people have been floating around
I think
type
people
of thing.
Are floating it around because it's I have a list of different options on the table. I kind of listed most of them. It's people, state level, the federal level, the courts, the hearings, right? Those are hard to understand and kind of incorporate into the assessment. Because at the end of the day, it's the House and the Senate members that ultimately decide, based on all the collective evidence that have been provided, to include the results of the election coupled with everything else that they're bombarded with, to decide whether or not they're going to accept electors from these states and then vote for whoever they're going to vote for, based on both that and party affiliation. They're the final arbiter on who the president is going to be.
Right.
And so we still got a lot of time. But that's complicated. The
Mhm.
Insurrection Act is a really jazzy, what do you want, sexy term that you can say you're either for it or against it. Like you're for it because type A personality, boom, bam, bam,
Yeah,
crush,
yeah.
crush the enemy.
Well, I think
No, that's weird. I'm scared. I'm scared of having
yeah.
to protect myself and using whatever means necessary.
I think part of the
We're not even
reason.
close to that, and that's not
Mhm.
really the Insurrection Act. If it were to be used,
Okay.
my forecast would be the first thing that would be implemented, if it even does get implemented, is you seize the assets that are causing this distrust, right? So you've heard of this, the
Mhm.
Dominion
Oh, yeah,
machines,
yeah, yeah.
doing an audit. So if these states are refusing to allow an audit of a federal election, the federal government can go in there and shed some light on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's political ramifications to that,
Right.
but the federal government has that authority. If there's, you have to meet the elements, right? There's probable cause, there has to be some sort of
Mhm.
crime, et cetera, et cetera. There's
Right.
mounting evidence of that, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
increasing and
yeah.
increasing.
Well, and I've also had it confirmed on a couple of fronts that we were actually watching this unfold in real time.
Yeah, the
Um,
statistical, not
yeah,
not anomalies. We're
and
going
that
into
yeah,
impossibilities.
and that we've actually that we've infiltrated many of their organizations, including Antifa, but also the elections offices, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah,
then another conjecture that I had when it comes to, for example, uh, special ops operations that nobody knows actually happened is I've been thinking about this laptop and these thumb drives that disappeared from Philadelphia. I'm almost wondering if our people maybe got those. That,
so
I'm
just
just
I'm glad you mentioned that. So just to
yeah.
kind of continue with what you just said and extrapolate that from, you have the inside team that's in the White House, you have the outside team, you have the campaign team. So each
Hmm.
one is limited or not limited on what they can do, and each one
Right.
has their own tolerance for risk. I would argue that the folks that are on the inside have a lower tolerance
Yeah.
for risk, and they're constrained by federal law as being a
Hmm.
federal, government official.
Right.
On the campaign, a higher tolerance for risk because
Okay.
you're representing essentially a private business known as the a campaign.
Hmm.
But and then you have different specialties and expertise in certain
Okay.
areas. The other team, I'm talking about like Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani.
Hmm.
They are fighting hard. They are
Yeah.
rowing
Yeah.
as fast as they can, even through COVID. Nothing but love and respect for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, on the General Flynn side, if you don't know, 100% loyal, been with him from day one, and that's where my loyalties are.
Hmm.
And Sidney Powell, obviously by extension,
Yeah.
and Lynn Wood by
Yeah,
extension.
yeah, and
I love those guys too.
I've
Now,
talked a lot about them on the show. I mean, we're 100% with them, and my take also, like yours, like, is that they're free agents, and so their risk
they're not
tolerance.
limited by federal, government
Exactly.
employee
Yeah,
rules.
they
And
never got
the federal
fired.
government cannot
Right,
do, cannot, if you will, spy like they did on Carter Page, right, without
mhm,
a FISA warrant. So
right,
they're limited on what they legally can do to do investigations.
mhm,
Whereas a private citizen, private individual, not affiliated really with anything,
yeah,
well, hell, you can reach out to any other person to find out as much as you can, whether it's open source intelligence or whatever other person's providing you whistleblower information.
mhm,
You're not constrained
yeah,
to the extent of
yeah,
these other ones. That's
yeah,
why it's best that you have an external element so that you can then fuse that information in an informal capacity to essentially coordinate efforts and not really violate it,
mhm,
right? And that's why Team Krakenwood, Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood
mhm,
are focused more on the forensic issues, the software,
right,
the actual machines. It just makes all sense. I mean, this is my assessment analysis. You'd have to talk to each person, individual, to confirm if that is the strategy.
mhm,
But I'm just extrapolating based on the indicators that I'm seeing of all the moving parts.
mhm. Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
you have those
I mean,
three teams,
I think
and
we're on the same page here. Actually,
yeah,
this is if
it was
I've
somewhat
been
disjointed before,
yeah.
but as things develop, just like in any brand new kind of operation,
Hmm.
you have people that come in and kind of fuse it. And that's really the role that I've been trying to play is how do we do it so that I'm just one person? I'm sure a lot of other people are doing it too. I don't take
Mhm.
any credit. I'm just doing my little. I use the analogy of I have a needle and I'm trying to row as fast as possible, and I'm trying to correct the ship known as the Titanic.
Right, right,
More people start to use their own needles and start to row collectively, we're going to get this right.
right. So I have one question, and this came up in the chat too. So on the one hand, I think that one reason that people want the Insurrection Act is because they just want to put an end to it. They just want the president to say enough, right? Because they, the Trump supporters have been putting up with a lot for many years, and they've been
I
watching what
get
the
it.
president is
It's an
going
easy,
through,
quick fix.
right? And so, but the other thing is, okay, at the same time, our people don't want violence, and so I think that the process you're describing is going to result in a lot less violence. However, one
So
of the
yeah,
things,
my proposals are
yeah,
escalatory in nature.
yeah, but
So it's essentially think of the stove and the burner and the
hmm,
water in it. You turn on the stove, it's 212-degree burner. You put a frog in there, right? Or you put whoever in there. So you start heating it up and heating it up.
yeah,
So you're gonna have people that are gonna resist, and I can last the longest. And essentially, you start having people bouncing out as the front runners of like your Mo Brooks. He wasn't even in the water; he was already outside of it,
hmm,
basically spearheading this thing on the objections in the House. And then
hmm,
you have Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't even in the water either. And then you have Congressman-elect Moore,
hmm,
but you have all these other folks that are in the water, and the people are the molecules that are creating the heat underneath us. And so as we apply more and more pressure, and then the lid is the vice president because
hmm.
he's the presiding officer in this whole electoral
Okay,
process. So he can put on a lid on it today to really start boiling quickly. And the
got
people
it.
that are in the middle are
Hmm.
your state legislatures.
Right. Okay, that makes
So
sense.
we
So
can start
yeah.
boiling
Okay.
and boiling, and then we escalate over the next 15 days. We keep escalating and
Hmm,
escalating, and
hmm.
it's really up to them to get out of the pot,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Because each person has
Yeah.
their own one
Yeah.
tolerance for risk and tolerance for pain. So
Yeah.
we just increase the pressure and increase it to the point of we're almost at the level where we need to have, if after I'd say the next few days we're not getting traction or
Hmm.
things are slowing down, then we need to find people with blowhorns. I'm not here to dox anyone. You can do research on your own. You go and find out where these legislators live
Hmm.
or are at during the holidays. I'm not saying don't break any law. You can find this stuff publicly, figure it out, and then in a public space during daylight hours when that city or county ordinance and state law allows you to make noise, make as much noise through that blowhorn to have a psychological impact to let them know where you stand and how they should factor in their decision making,
Hmm.
what electors, whether to recall their own electors or to who to vote for.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, the next day have two people doing that, and then the next day double that, and then the next day double that, and you're doing it from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. If the law allows in that jurisdiction.
Make the noise. Yeah. I think
That's
that,
I mean think
yeah.
about it,
And
16 hours or 12 hours a
right.
day of outside
Yeah.
your door, constant. I mean,
like
it has
like
a
a
psychological impact. You're
yeah.
not violating any law, and that's going to turn heads.
Mhm, like leftists do. I mean, and one of the arguments
No,
that
no, because I'm not advocating violence. I'm not
right,
advocating use the meat. You educate
noise.
yourself on the rules of your community,
Right.
but you're pushing them to the very limit.
I'm talking about the noise. Yeah, they make
Oh,
a lot of noise, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've been at rallies where they're just blowing whistles at you and all that. It's crazy. But the one thing too that I'm going to close with this, and you've given us a lot of your time, so I appreciate it. As a military man, one of the things that I hear a lot as the objection for people who don't want to take action, for example, the courts, they say if we do this there's going to be violence, and my answer to that is if we don't do this, violence will be the least of our worries because of what's coming to this nation.
Mhm.
It will be a violence that we will never be able to recover
Right, and
from.
that's why on January 6th, all these legislators, everybody involved in this electoral process and its impact, if they stay in the pot, the people potentially increase it beyond 212.
Mhm.
You see what I mean by that?
So
And that's when, if that happens, then you start getting into the territory of having to invoke an insurrection act,
mm,
having to invoke martial law. But like I said,
right.
on the kinetic side of things, I say it's three-phased. We're not there yet. I think the only one that we're going to probably get to is the seizure of these machines. That's really probably the only one we're going to get to. Now,
Mhm.
if the left starts acting up, going crazy on the streets, yeah, I mean, you can invoke insurrection act, or you can just let them fail in those Democrat states. That's really up to the president in consultation with those governors. I mean, we'll see. And then the last one is, you're not going to see full blown martial law in the country. I don't. I mean, it would only be in the cities, and most likely in the cities that are contested. But then again, I don't get briefed on what China, Russia, and Iran are doing within the United States to help stoke this, because they
Right.
definitely want to do it. They want
Right.
to create as much chaos and division
Yeah.
and recruit assets that have the most influence,
And they've done a good
whether it's
job of it. I
Republican or
mean, yeah,
Democrat.
they've infiltrated quite a lot, but we also know that infiltration works both ways, right? That we've been able to infiltrate a number of organizations and groups that
Yeah.
they haven't suspected. I mean, look at what they did. Since the 2018 midterms in Florida, the elections in Florida have been totally cleaned up. They had their count in by 8:30, 9 o'clock on election night. They were done. And that is, I believe, because we got people inside in Broward County and some other elections office. We reverse engineered it. This is my theory, that we reverse engineered to see
Yeah,
exactly
that's
how they
probably one component. I think one
committed
of
the
the other
fraud.
critical components is the in 2000 they went through this pain, if you will, and they had to
Yeah.
make a lot of corrections since then. So I'd say that's
Right.
also a component,
Right.
right?
But yeah, I think I agree. I don't think it started in 2018 because obviously the president wrote the executive order before that election. But I think that it gave him what he needed to get our people inside of the appropriate places to gather the intel. And I believe reverse engineer. I mean, I think that's how we knew that a lot of this was coming. That's my take on it. So, listen, Ivan, how can people follow you? How can they find your information?
Yeah, well, I mean,
So,
while I still exist on Twitter,
okay,
because I don't know how things play out, because
yeah,
everything I'm putting out is based on the Constitution
hmm,
and federal law and sometimes state law. It doesn't fit with the narrative that they put out based on emotion
sure.
and gut feeling. So
The
I don't know how long
official,
I'm gonna last, but you can find me at Raiklin on Twitter. Eight is at Raiklin, RAIKLIN.
okay,
And literally, I put out as soon as I hear something new, it comes out.
hmm,
Yeah, I try to be entertaining, but incorporate what's going on with the
hmm,
election. My main focus is the electoral process as it plays out through
okay.
January 6th, and I'm hoping it's going to end on January 6th.
Do you have a backup on Parlor or Cloud Hub or both?
I'm on Parler.
Okay,
I'm on Facebook. I'm on what
okay,
else? LinkedIn. But even LinkedIn, I did my constitutional analysis early that first week in November, putting together the map, and they said it was misinformation. And then I responded to them saying, I did a post saying, "Oh, great, the Constitution and Title III of the U.S. Code is misinformation," and they actually recanted. So that was a minor success.
that's good. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I'm surprised they haven't been putting those disclaimers on all of your tweets like they do the president. I think they just have a template now for the president where they just put "this has been disputed" on every single one of his tweets, and then if it doesn't fit, they'll take the template off. That's what we're seeing.
Right.
But
I think so too.
yeah, I mean, I do. I think then they might do a manual review and go, "Oops, he did a tweet about the vaccine. Whoops."
So,
So yeah.
last thing, call to action.
Okay. Yes.
January
What do you
3rd
want everybody
through
to
the
do?
6th. We need every single patriot in Washington, D.C. at a minimum on the 6th. If you can do it from January 3rd through the 6th. If you're in the D.C. area, make sure you open up your home to host at least one or two patriots. I'm going to have 3 patriots coming in from out of town that I'm going to host. So I'm already booked up and full in our home.
Okay. Yep.
The reason why we need you here is while the new Congress, the 117th Congress, is deliberating, and figuring out if they're going to object or accept certain electoral slates.
Mm-hmm.
If there are 1 to 2 million people on the outside of the Capitol, that's going to probably factor in their decision-making process.
Okay, so we want the masses and the noise outside of the Capitol peacefully protesting, right? Okay.
Peacefully.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do.
Requesting.
Yeah.
That they make the right decision.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
At every waking moment of their week.
Good. Yeah, exactly. So you're hearing this, Patriots. So as soon as you finish your New Year's revelry, head on over to the Capitol. And I already told everybody that Mayor Browser has shut down all the indoor dining. So people are going to be bringing all their provisions and
right,
patronizing.
And I sent out a tweet and people were like, oh, you're threatening. I said, bring your food, water, what else?
Yeah.
Walkie-talkie and a med bag.
Okay, walkie-talkies.
Because everything's closed.
Okay, are you hearing this, everybody? So walkie-talkie's good because we were losing cell signal when I was there before. So that's a good point. So be prepared, Patriots. I'm gonna be staying at a hotel, but we don't even know we can't even like sit in the lobby and eat. We were told that you can only eat in your room. So just be prepared for the eventuality that you might not even be able to get food trucks. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I would bring enough sustenance for the entire 5 days. Stage it where you're at. Bring enough food for the day until you get back. I mean, wherever you're staying, and so have enough food, water
to be in the city for the day.
Yeah. I'll give guidance as
okay.
If you guys don't really know what you're doing in this sort of environment, I'll push out tweets to essentially think this through.
Yeah,
it's sort of a packing list.
Yeah, that would be great.
Don't anything illegal, contraband.
I've had people ask me. Yeah,
sustaining yourself.
Okay, yeah. Some people are saying helmets and goggles too. I mean that
would be great.
Yeah.
I always recommend eye protection in big crowds. That's
okay.
why you see me all the time with sunglasses.
Okay.
Because it's easy to.
Okay. Yeah. So safety glasses like you would get at the hardware store. Okay. Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So these are some great tips. So make sure everyone that you're following Ivan's Twitter account and his Facebook. He's going to put out guidance to help you be prepared to be in the city because we know for sure that the mayor she's not allowing any indoor dining, and we don't want to be sitting ducks at these outdoor cafe things, where they're just going to come and find you sitting at an outdoor cafe. We don't want that. So, we want to be prepared.
I think we're going to completely overwhelm.
Yeah.
They're only going to try and come out at night.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. But, I mean, I have my head on a swivel all the time. I mean, I lived in Africa, so there's that. But not everybody has. So, everybody has a different awareness, situational awareness. But,
right.
But thank you so much for taking the time. You've been on with us.
I mean, that's amazing.
For a long time.
You know your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a nerd. I'm sometimes known as the Trump whisperer on here. And so people come to get, sort of a little bit of teaching and coaching and direction about what's happening because not everybody has the time, to dig into the things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're totally into it.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure. Yeah.
Teaching, coaching, and mentoring. So when you know something and it's valuable, instead of complaining that, hey, the White House should know this, or the Vice President should know it, the Congressman should know this, my state legislature, why aren't they doing it yet? They don't have a clue. You know why? Because they work for you and me. You need to let your subordinate know what they need to be doing next. That's the attitude we need to have when we're trying to get something done. They work for you. You have to teach, mentor them, guide them, and train them along the way. Because if you're doing more research than they are, it's incumbent on you and me to do that. And so you need to reach out to them and let them know on what the proper path forward is. And I'm going to be doing that for the next 2 weeks with many congressmen and many senators. It's not that I'm any better than them, any worse than them. It's just that I'm at a different point in the learning curve on a specific subject matter. And on this subject matter, the presidential election, I'm pretty confident I'm one of the I kind of know it. I mean, I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I agree. I don't know if you know Christian Lamar, but he's another one who is pretty well versed in this. I should probably connect you guys. He's out in
Yeah, that would be
Arizona.
great. Yeah,
Um,
that would be great.
but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, he's a scholar in this respect. He's a little bit of an egghead here. Yeah, this is something I think we're on the same wavelength here because one of the things that I've been trying to do, especially with all of the pandemic insanity, is to get
Hmm.
people to educate their employers about what is actually legal, and because a lot of times they don't know. And one thing that we've been learning in the process of me doing the show, like you're saying, is that a lot of the people who get elected to public office, they don't even know the Constitution. They don't know the law. They don't
Right.
know
The
how
first
they
two
got
weeks, I
there.
was trying to explain to these legislatures, individually and collectively, that the governor's not involved. Hey, by the way, you have the authority to choose your electors. What? I mean, you know the deal. You probably were doing the same thing as
Yeah,
you were looking into
yeah,
this.
yeah. So this is important stuff. Thank you, I mean, everybody. Hopefully, you're taking notes. Hopefully, you're sharing this because we are Americans, and the government of this country is by the consent of the governed, and that means that
Yep.
it is up to us to tell them what is allowed and what is not allowed based on the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land.
And
And
we
it's
hire and fire you at
yeah,
will,
and it's being
because the first
violated.
three words of that Constitution is "We
Right.
the people."
Yeah, and people don't understand that when people talk about, them giving us our rights are granted by God and they are protected
Hmm.
by the people that we put in office. There's no other option. And so I think we're on the same page there. And they've actually sworn to uphold the Constitution, and they're not doing that at any level, pretty much nationwide. There are a few who are, but very most who aren't. And so it is our job, every single one of us in the chat, all of my listeners, it is our job to make sure that the people that we've put in office, whether it's local or state or federal, that they are upholding the Constitution and that we are taking back our rights and standing up for them. So thank you, Ivan. I really
100%
appreciate you
agree
being
with
here.
everything you said.
Thank you. Yeah, I
I have
really
nothing to add.
appreciate you being here, and thank you again so much. We're getting great feedback in the chat. I did have some questions, and I may be messaging you with a few questions so that I can circle back tomorrow
Yeah,
on my
sure. I
show.
have open DMs, so if anybody
Oh,
wants to reach out, I mean, I try
okay,
to get as many of them as possible. But
okay,
I do tend to
great.
sleep once a day a little bit, so
And you have a
yeah, I might not be
family,
able to get
right? I
to it.
mean, you have a family. You have kids, right? I mean, you have a family too.
Yeah, the
That
family went on vacation, and
oh,
I said, "I'm sorry, I gotta.
okay,
This is too important. I'm
yeah,
probably not going to be available till January 6th." So I said, "I apologize," and I said, "You know what? I'll get some. I'll get a few bottles of wine." I sent out a tweet yesterday. I think if anybody wants to contribute to the wife wine fund, get her a
oh.
bottle. You can do
Okay.
that.
Is she a Pinot or Chardonnay gal? Like what's her
She likes red. As long as it's
Oh,
red, it doesn't matter.
okay. I have some Pinot Noir. Maybe we'll have to meet up when I'm coming up to DC on the 5th. So we'll connect. We're going to be at
What?
the
You're a leader. You need to be here on the 3rd at noon when the new Congress launches. Kicks off.
well, I
Where is that?
might I might have to crash in your house because our hotel reservation is for the 5th. But yeah, we'll connect, Ivan.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So thank you so much, and we might have you back on again because this update has been invaluable. I'm getting great feedback here in the chat, and we'll just we've got a country to save. I'm not stopping. I'm taking 2 days to go see family for Christmas, and that's it. So
Well,
um,
thanks for everything you're doing, Mary.
yeah,
I
thank you
appreciate
so
this.
much, and again, thank you for your service, and God watch over you and bless you and keep you, and be uh, we'll be in touch with you for sure. And
All right.
everybody, you can message him. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. All
Okay,
right.
take care. Bye.
Cheers.
Okay, guys, how was that? Give me your feedback. We are moving into a different place here. Right? It's what do you think? Everybody happy with that? So one of the things that I'm doing with my show is I'm gearing up actually to bring in interviews and to do, more news and interviews like this. So give me your feedback. let me know, email me, let me know how that was for you. I'm seeing in the chat that everybody was enjoying that. We've been on for quite a long time. And so I think it was good, right? Okay. And so we're gonna have a I'm gonna have another show tomorrow, and we will um we will see how long I'll be on. But yeah, I'm getting great feedback here. So wonderful. I'm glad that was helpful. So just, take action. And if you can get into if you can get to DC for this, this is important in my opinion. I think this is more important than the inauguration. I really do. And so I think it's way more important. And so yeah, everybody's concerned that I couldn't get a word in. I'll have to tell them what you guys said. Somebody in the YouTube chat said, "Well, he's a lawyer, so he won't let you finish a sentence." Believe me, I can get a word in if I want to, but what he had to say was pretty important, and I think we had a meeting of the minds, so I think that was good. But for sure, if you can get to DC, make sure you do that. And one thing I will say is that there are hotels outside of DC. And based on what I've seen so far when I've been into DC, because the city is basically empty, there are parking garages. And so one of the things that you can consider doing, assuming that these garages stay open, is that you can sort of stage from the parking garage, because then that way you're out of the weather. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. But there are ways to do it. There are hotels that you can stay in right outside in Virginia, just across the bridge, across the river. And so if you look at the map and you go on booking.com and you see, you look for hotels in Washington, D.C., they're going to also point you to hotels that are just across the river that actually have fewer restrictions, because Virginia isn't shut down yet. So there's just keep that in mind. It's not that far to get out of the city over the river. Like when you cross the river, you're in Virginia. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So yeah, so I've got an Australian here. You're going to be praying for us. That's great. And so I am going to sign off here. We've been on for quite a long time. Thank you for everybody for sharing this. Again, if you are on Facebook, please share this into groups, because that's how we get out. That's how we get the information out. That's how we go viral. And so, we want to make sure that we get this information out. Okay. And so, last thing I'm going to say, I have people who are wanting to get into the Superfoods Transformation Challenge that we're doing. We're starting our prep group, our private, our group coaching on the 28th, and that's the prep time. You can still get into the group, and you can order your superfoods, and you can get my voucher, my savings voucher, to save $100 or more off of a full month's supply of superfoods. And believe me, I'm going to have my superfoods with me in DC, and because it keeps me energized, and it's going to help you lose weight if that's what you want to do. There's all kinds of reasons that you want to get on the superfoods, but as you can see, we need to be on top of our game right now. And so getting your body in shape and putting good nutrition into your body is really key. And so please join us on this. Send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com, and make sure that you are joining us for this Superfoods Challenge, because this is a great time. We also have we have a gift with purchase options right now, and they don't do that usually. So make sure you send me an email. I'm putting this in the chat. And thank you, JC, for putting it in the YouTube chat. There's a little bit of a lag. Okay, so I'm putting that in. So make sure you get in touch with me. And those of you who follow Greg Harvey, he's going to do a green beard challenge. And so his group is going to be doing a weight loss challenge. And then all of my listeners are going to be doing it. And I think we're going to have a little friendly challenge. So yeah. So info@marygracemedia.com. I will be back tomorrow at 5 Eastern. It is Christmas Eve. And so so I think that we're going to have a great show. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful evening. I'm just looking through the chat here, and write to me to get your voucher. save money, get a whole month supply of superfoods. Also, if you are looking to prep and put food away for anything that might come, the superfoods are great for that. They're very shelf stable. Okay. Okay. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. And we will be doing more of these types of things on the show. Have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. And I will be back tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make sure you're following.